Breathing in, I feel alive. Breathing out, I smile to life in me and around me.
吸氣，我正活着；呼氣，我對我嘅生命同埋周圍嘅生命微笑。
Feeling alive, smiling to life.
我正活着，對生命微笑。
The word mindfulness in Chinese is written in such a way that that can help us to understand what is mindfulness.
正面嘅中文練字嘅寫法可以幫助我哋明白正面嘅意思。
Below is the mind, and above is the present moment.
下半部分係一個心字，而上面係一個金字，即係當下呢一刻。
So mindfulness is to bring the mind back to the present moment.
念嘅意思係將我哋嘅心帶回當下呢一刻。
It means that we should not allow our mind to be caught in the past that will produce either sorrow or regret.
意思即係話，我哋唔會俾過去嘅悲傷或者後悔困住。
It also means that we do not let our mind to be pulled into the future that will produce fear, uncertainty, worries.
意思亦都係話，我哋唔會讓我哋嘅心因為將來而擔憂恐懼。
And when we bring our mind back to the present moment, it should become one with our body.
我哋將心帶回當下一刻，身心一如。
And when the mind is together with that body, that is already a fruit of the practice.
當身心能夠一齊嘅時候，已經係我哋收集嘅成果。身心一如。
And it takes only 3 or 4 seconds in order to arrive at the state of oneness of body and mind.
只需要幾秒鐘，我哋就可以令我哋嘅身心一如。
In that moment, there is the energy of mindfulness that keep you fully present in the here and the now.
正面嘅能量幫助我哋可以全面咁樣活在當下。
And with that energy of mindfulness, You can get in touch with the positive things, refreshing, healing for your own transformation and nourishment.
正念嘅能量幫助我哋接觸正面嘅事物，可以為我哋帶嚟轉化同埋治療。
And you may get in touch with the negative things like the pain, the sorrow, the fear, the anger that is manifesting, so that you can handle, you can take care of them.
亦都可以幫助我哋接觸到一啲負面嘅情緒感受等等，好似恐懼、悲傷等等，幫助我哋去處理呢一啲感受。
And mindfulness is always mindfulness of something.
正念係關於某一啲事物嘅念。
When you breathe mindfully, that is called mindfulness of breathing.
當你以正念呼吸嘅時候，我哋可以話係正念嘅呼吸。
When you walk mindfully, that is mindfulness of walking.
當你以正念覺知緊步行嘅時候，我哋可以話係正念步行。
And when you drink your tea mindfully, that is mindfulness of drinking.
如果你正念覺知咁樣飲茶，就即係正念咁樣正念喝茶。
When you drive your car, you may like to practice mindfulness of driving.
當你揸車嘅時候，你可以收集正念駕駛。
Thus, mindfulness is possible in every moment of our daily life.
喺生命中嘅每一刻，我哋都可以收集正念。
And the basic practice is to generate the energy of mindfulness at each moment of our daily life.
我哋嘅基本收集係喺生命入邊嘅每一刻培養正念。
And after a few days, the grain, the seed of mindfulness in us will become more important.
經過幾日嘅收集，我哋心中正念嘅種子會成長。
And anytime we need that energy, we just touch that grain, that seed of mindfulness in us by the way of mindful breathing, and we will have plenty of that energy in order to take care of ourselves and to do whatever we want to do.
每一次我哋想接觸正面能量嘅時候，我哋可以通過正念呼吸同埋步行接觸我哋內在正面嘅種子，讓我哋有能力去活好生命中嘅每一刻。
When anger arises in ourselves, the practice of mindfulness helps us to recognize anger and to hold anger.
當我哋心中有憤怒生起嘅時候，正念能夠幫助我哋去覺察到憤怒正在生起。
And that means that is the practice of mindfulness called mindfulness of anger.
呢一個我哋可以稱之為正念覺察憤怒。
When anger manifests,
當憤怒生起嘅時候，
it is a kind of energy. We might call it energy one.
我哋可以將佢叫做第一項能量。
And if we are a practitioner, we don't let anger to be alone in us.
如果我哋有收集禪修嘅話，我哋唔會單單只讓憤怒生起。
We practice mindful breathing, mindful walking, so that we have another source of energy called mindfulness.
我哋收集正面呼吸、正面步行，讓我哋有第二種嘅能量生起。呢一個能量就係正面嘅能量。
That is the energy number two we produce in order to take care of the energy number one.
我哋培養第二項能量，好去照顧第一項能量。
Mindfulness, first of all, acknowledge the fact that anger is there.
正面嘅能量覺察承認第一項能量憤怒正在生起。
And mindfulness after that will hold, embrace the energy of anger in a tender way.
正面嘅能量輕輕咁樣擁抱憤怒。
It's like a mother When she hear the baby cry, she would stop what she is doing. She goes into the room of the baby and she pick the baby up and hold her baby tenderly into her arms.
正如一個媽媽，當佢聽到 B B 喺度喊嘅時候，佢會停低手上做緊嘅嘢，行到去 B B 房，抱起 B B，輕輕咁樣抱起 B B。
The mother never wants to suppress the baby or punish the baby.
媽媽從來冇想過要壓制 B B 或者懲罰呢個 B B。
The mother only pick up the baby and hold the baby tenderly, and that is exactly what a practitioner should do with his or her anger.
媽媽輕輕咁樣抱起 B B， 抱住 B B。我哋修習禪修，我哋要做嘅亦都係一樣，輕輕咁樣擁抱憤怒。
The energy of mindfulness that you generate, you don't use it in order to suppress or to fight your anger. In fact, you use that energy to recognize anger as something existing, and you use it in order to hold your anger tenderly, like a mother would hold her baby.
我哋生起嘅正面能量並唔係用嚟壓制憤怒，相反，我哋用我哋嘅正面輕輕咁樣擁抱憤怒，就好似一位媽媽抱住佢嘅 B B 一樣。
In the Buddhist tradition, mindfulness is you, but anger is onto you. So there is no violence in the practice. You just take care of your anger in the most non-violent, gentle way.
喺佛教入邊，正面係你，憤怒亦都係你，因此我哋唔會用暴力去對抗憤怒，我哋輕輕咁樣擁抱憤怒。
You don't try to fight your anger. You don't feel ashamed because you are angry. You just recognize, accept it, and hold it tenderly.
你唔會對抗憤怒，亦都唔會因為你生起憤怒而感到羞愧。我哋只係輕輕咁樣去擁抱憤怒。
You might like to continue your mindful breathing, your mindful walking, in order to keep the energy of mindfulness alive, so that you can continue to embrace, to hold your anger with tenderness.
你可以持續咁收集正面步行同埋正面呼吸，讓你時刻都有正面嘅能量去處理擁抱你嘅憤怒。
If you do that 4, 5, 6 minutes, you will feel some relief.
如果你收集4分鐘、6分鐘，你會感到釋放。
The energy of mindfulness will penetrate into the zone of the other kind of energy and begin its process of transformation.
正面嘅能量能夠滲入其他嘅能量，令轉化得以開始。
It's like when your room is too hot, you turn on the air conditioner that produce cool air. The cool air does not fight hot air. In fact, it comes and embraces the hot air until the hot air becomes less hot.
正如一間房好熱嘅時候，我哋開冷氣，我哋讓冷嘅空氣擁抱熱嘅空氣，令間房能夠變得更加涼快。
There is absolutely no fighting, no violence here.
絕對冇任何嘅對抗或者壓制。
The Buddhist way is very gentle, it's very non-violent.
我哋用非暴力嘅方法，非常之輕柔嘅方法。
You accept your anger as it is, and you embrace it tenderly.
我哋接受憤怒，輕輕咁樣擁抱憤怒。
When anger arises, you breathe in, you say, "Hello, my anger. I know you. You are an old friend. I will take good care of you."
當憤怒生起嘅時候，我哋同佢講： 嗨，憤怒，你係我嘅舊朋友，我知道你正在生氣，我會好好咁樣照顧你。
Mindfulness is like a big brother taking care of the younger brother, a big sister taking care of her young sister.
正面嘅能量就好似一個大哥哥或者大姐姐照顧佢哋嘅弟弟妹妹。
We do not consider our afflictions as our enemies.
我哋唔會將我哋嘅煩惱視為我哋嘅敵人。
In the teaching of the Buddha, afflictions and enlightenment, they have between the two there is a strong connection.
喺佛陀嘅教導入邊，煩惱同埋覺醒兩者有密切嘅聯繫。
I am doing this mindfully, joyfully.
我正在好有正面咁樣擦黑板。
And I enjoy doing this.
我非常之享受擦黑板。煩惱即菩提。
There's a strong connection between afflictions like fear, anger, despair, and peace and enlightenment and happiness.
煩惱同埋覺醒、平安兩者之間有非常之大嘅聯繫。
And this comes from the kind of wisdom called the wisdom of non-discrimination.
呢個覺察係嚟自無分別智。
When we grow lotus flowers, we know that we need the mud. You cannot grow lotus flowers on marble. You have to grow them in the mud.
當我哋想種蓮花嘅時候，我哋需要泥土，我哋並唔可以喺雲石上面種到蓮花。
The fact is that if there is no mud, there will be no lotus.
事實上，如果冇泥嘅話，唔會有蓮花。
So the same thing is true with our afflictions, our suffering. Without afflictions, without suffering, there is no enlightenment, there is no happiness.
煩惱亦都一樣，如果冇煩惱嘅話，唔會有覺醒，唔會有幸福。
There is a strong, a deep connection between our suffering and the happiness that we try to realize.
苦樂相積，我哋嘅痛苦同埋幸福兩者之間有非常之大嘅聯繫。
So the practice of Buddhism is an art how to handle suffering.
修習佛法其實係學習點樣去處理痛苦。
If you know how to handle suffering, you can produce happiness.
如果你知道點樣去處理憤怒，你會懂得培養幸福。
You know how to make use of suffering in order to produce happiness.
你會知道點樣去利用痛苦培養幸福。
If you are an organic gardener, you will not throw away all the garbage. You know how to make use of the garbage to make compost and nourish the vegetable, the flowers.
如果你係一個有機耕作者，你唔會將所有嘅垃圾抌咗佢，你會懂得利用呢啲垃圾轉化為肥料去栽種植物。
The heap of garbage is not very attractive. It does not smell very well, very good. But if you are a good organic gardener, you will not throw the garbage away. You know to make use of it in order to nourish your flowers and your vegetables.
一堆嘅垃圾並不吸引，佢嘅氣味並唔係太好。但係如果你係一個有機耕作者嘅話，你會懂得利用呢啲垃圾轉化為肥料去栽種你嘅蔬菜或者植物。
And that is why the attitude, the habit, energy that push us to run away from our suffering is not a good one, because we have to find happiness right in the midst of suffering.
我哋可能會有一啲習慣，希望可以逃避痛苦，但係呢一個並唔係好嘅習慣，因為正正喺痛苦之中，我哋可以揾到幸福。
It's like when you try to find the Buddha. The Buddha, the safest, the surest place to find a Buddha is a human being.
正如佛陀一樣，如果我哋想尋找佛陀嘅話，我哋係要喺人入邊尋找。
In the teaching of Chinese Buddhism, we learn that the Buddha and living beings, they are one can be found in the other. Buddha and living beings are not two separate entities.
喺漢傳佛教入邊，我哋有話佛生不異，佛陀同埋眾生並唔係分開嘅，佛陀同眾生喺一齊，兩者並唔係兩個唔同嘅個體。
You are a living being, and because you are a living being, there is a possibility for you to become a Buddha.
你係眾生，因此你有機會可以成為佛陀。
And looking deeply into the living being, you can see the Buddha.
當我哋觀察眾生嘅時候，我哋可以見到佛陀。
And you can talk about the Buddha nature in every human being.
喺每一個人之中都有佛性。
This is not something very abstract. You have the capacity to drink your tea mindfully. Drinking tea, you know, you are aware that you are drinking tea. That is mindfulness of drinking. And mindfulness is only the Buddha nature in yourself.
呢個並唔係空泛嘅説法。你有正念嘅話，你可以正念覺察咁樣飲茶。當你正念咁樣飲茶嘅時候，呢一個已經係你內在佛性。
A Buddha is someone who is inhabited by the energy of mindfulness.
佛陀充滿正念嘅能量。
The energy of mindfulness carries within herself the energy of concentration.
正念入邊有正定，即係專注。
And if the energy of mindfulness and concentration are powerful enough, you get the insight, you get the wisdom, you get the liberation.
如果念同埋定夠強嘅話，你會能夠有智慧，能夠了解洞察。
So every one of us has a seed of mindfulness, a seed of concentration, a seed of insight in us, and that is sure, that is certain. It means that we have our Buddha nature.
我哋每一個人都有念定慧嘅種子，呢個係非常之肯定嘅。因此我哋係會有呢個覺醒嘅種子。
Buddha nature is your capacity to be mindful.
佛性即係話你哋有正面嘅能力，
The capacity to understand and to love.
能夠了解同埋愛。
So Buddha nature in everyone is something very concrete, not just a abstract idea.
我哋每一個人都有佛性，係非常之具體嘅，並唔係一個空泛嘅意念。
And the true practice is the kind of practice that can every day touch these beautiful seeds in us and help them to grow.
真正嘅修習能夠每一日都幫我哋接觸到呢啲美麗嘅種子，幫助呢啲種子成長。
And the energy of mindfulness, concentration and insight have the power to hold our suffering, to transform it.
正念專注同埋智慧能夠幫助我哋擁抱我哋嘅痛苦，轉化痛苦。
A flower is to become a piece of garbage in 10 days or 20 days.
一朵花會喺10日或者20日之後成為垃圾。
A flower is on her way to the heap of garbage.
花朵正係喺佢走向垃圾堆嘅途中。
But the garbage, if we know how to handle, is on her way to become a flower again.
但係如果你懂得處理垃圾嘅話，垃圾亦都係喺佢再次變成花朵嘅途中。
Your love for him or for her is very beautiful in the beginning.
你對嗰一個人嘅愛喺最初嘅時候係非常之美麗嘅。
But if you don't know how to handle that love, it will not last very long. It can turn to be hate, anger, despair.
但係如果你唔識去處理呢一份愛，呢一份愛有可能會轉變成為仇恨、憤怒。
Your love is a beautiful flower that can turn into a piece of garbage very quickly if you don't know how to nourish.
你嘅愛係一朵美麗嘅花朵，但係如果你唔識得去培養愛嘅話，愛心好可能會變成垃圾。
But in this teaching and practice, if it happens that your love has turned into hate, you don't despair, because if you know the art of organic gardening, you'll be able to turn the hate back into love again.
但係喺我哋嘅修習入邊，如果我哋愛變成仇恨嘅話，我哋唔會感到絕望，因為我哋懂得有機耕作，我哋可以將呢個仇恨再次變成愛。
In the retreats that we have helped organize a little bit everywhere, in Europe and in America, the miracle of reconciliation always happened.
喺唔同國家，我哋舉辦禪修營，喺歐洲或者美國等等，我哋總係會見到一啲奇蹟，就係和解嘅奇蹟。
There are people who can no longer talk to each other, who can no longer communicate with each other. After 5 days of practice, they can open their heart and reconcile.
有啲人佢哋彼此再唔會講話，唔會溝通，但係經過5日嘅禪修營，佢哋重新可以建立溝通。
And they can restore their love.
重新建立愛。
And that is true between father and son, husband and wife, partner and partner.
無論係父親同埋兒子、夫妻等等，我哋亦都見到呢啲改變發生。
So if the suffering is a little bit overwhelming, let us do not let us not despair. If we know the art of practice, we will turn a piece of garbage back into a flower.
如果我哋非常之痛苦，覺得受不了，我哋唔需要感到絕望，因為我哋懂得有機耕作，我哋可以再次將垃圾轉為花朵。
In Buddhism, suffering, the nature of suffering and the nature of happiness, they are both organic.
喺佛教嚟講，痛苦同埋快樂，佢哋兩者嘅本性都係有機嘅。
It means that if love can turn to be hate, hate can be turned back to love again.
即係話愛可以變成仇恨，而仇恨亦都可以再次變成愛。
And enlightenment, liberation can be found in the midst of suffering and confusion and afflictions.
喺痛苦、煩惱同埋混亂之中，我哋可以揾到覺醒同埋解脫。
Trying to run away from suffering with the hope to attain enlightenment is like to banish all the mud and hope and to have the hope of having lotus flowers.
如果我哋去逃避痛苦嘅話，我哋喺逃避痛苦之中想得到覺醒，就係好似我哋想唔用泥土去種植蓮花一樣。
So the practice that the Buddha recommends is that we go home to ourselves with the energy of mindfulness and recognize the suffering inside of us and try to listen to it and hold it dearly in order to begin to understand.
佛陀嘅教導係我哋要回歸自己嘅家園，聆聽我哋心中嘅痛苦，處理我哋嘅痛苦。
Understanding suffering gives rise to compassion.
了解痛苦會能夠讓慈悲生起。
We have to understand our own suffering before we can understand his or her suffering.
我哋先要了解自己嘅痛苦，然後先至能夠了解佢嘅痛苦。
Understanding our own suffering, compassion in us will arise and we will suffer much less. We become much lighter.
能夠了解自己嘅痛苦，心中嘅慈悲會能夠生起，痛苦因而減輕，我哋覺得亦更加輕鬆。
And we will be in a situation to help the other person to do the same.
我哋亦都有能力去幫助其他人同樣咁樣去收集。
Since we have understood our own suffering, it is much easier for us to understand his suffering, her suffering.
當我哋能夠了解自己嘅痛苦嘅時候，我哋會更加容易能夠了解其他人嘅痛苦。
Understanding our suffering, we no longer want to punish him or her for having made us suffer.
當你了解佢嘅痛苦之後，你唔會再想要懲罰佢，總使佢令你痛苦，你唔會再想懲罰佢。
Understanding our suffering, we can see that in him, in her, there is a lot of suffering too.
當我哋能夠了解自己嘅痛苦之後，我哋會發覺到其實喺對方喺佢嘅心中亦都係存在痛苦嘅。
That person does not know how to handle his or her suffering.
佢並唔識得點樣去處理佢嘅痛苦。
That person has not learned the art of the Buddha to handle suffering.
佢並未有學習到佛陀所教導處理痛苦嘅方法。
He or she becomes victims of his own suffering, and we also become the victim of that suffering.
佢成為自己憤怒嘅受害者，而我哋亦都成為佢嘅憤怒嘅受害者。
That person needs help and not punishment.
佢需要幫助而唔係懲罰。
Since you have understood your own suffering, you see his suffering, and you are motivated by the desire to help and not to punish anymore.
當你了解到自己嘅痛苦之後，你會發覺到其實佢心中亦都有痛苦，你會想要去幫助佢，而唔係想懲罰佢。
And with the practice of compassionate listening and loving speech, you can help him or her to understand his or her own suffering.
通過慈悲聆聽同埋愛語嘅收集，我哋可以幫助對方了解佢哋自己嘅痛苦，
and to suffer less.
減少佢哋嘅痛苦。
The first exercise of mindful breathing is to recognize your in-breath when it is taking place, and recognize your out-breath when it is taking place.
正念呼吸嘅第一項收集係要喺你吸氣嘅時候覺察到你正在吸氣，呼氣嘅時候覺察到你正在呼氣。
And you need some mindfulness in order to recognize the in-breath as the in-breath and out-breath as an out-breath.
你需要一啲正念嘅能量，先至可以覺察到你正在吸氣或者正在呼氣。
It is like a game, a play. You don't do anything, you just recognize your in-breath and you just recognize your out-breath.
就好似一個遊戲咁，你唔需要好費力，你只需要覺察你吸氣或者呼氣。
In the Sutra of Mindful Breathing, it is written very clearly, breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out.
安波手已經寫得非常之清楚。吸氣，我知道我正在吸氣；呼氣，我知道我正在呼氣。
It is a very simple exercise, but the effect can be very great.
呢一個係好簡單嘅練習，但係可以帶嚟好大嘅成果。
You bring your mind back to focus on your in-breath, to focus your out-breath, and by doing so, you are free from the past, you are free from the future, you are free from your projects, your fear, your anger.
你將你嘅專注放喺你嘅吸氣同埋呼氣上邊，因此你可以從過去、將來你手頭上嘅工作計劃之中得到釋放，感到自在。
Because the object of your mind now is only your in-breath and your out-breath.
因為你而家心嘅對象只係你嘅吸氣同埋呼氣。
So focusing your mind on your in-breath and out-breath, you release the past, you release the future and all other things.
因此，當你專注咁樣將注意力放喺吸氣同埋呼氣之上，你能夠釋放過去、將來同埋所有其他嘅嘢。
And the second exercise on mindful breathing is to follow your in-breath and your out-breath from the beginning to the end.
正念呼吸嘅第二個練習係由你嘅吸氣或者呼氣 嘅整個過程，你都保持覺察。
Suppose this line represent my in-breath.
假如呢一條線代表我嘅吸氣。
This is the beginning of my in-breath, and this is the end.
我吸氣由呢邊開始，去到另外一邊。
And my in-breath may last 4 seconds.
可能我吸氣4秒鐘。
My finger represent mind, and I practice breathing in. I know breathing in. I follow my in-breath all the way through.
我嘅手指係代表我嘅專注覺察，代表我嘅心。我嘅心隨住我吸氣開始，一路專注於呼吸，直到吸氣結束。
Breathing out, I follow my out-breath all the way through.
呼氣，我觀察整個呼氣嘅過程。
No matter how long or how short your in-breath or out-breath are, you just follow them all the way through.
無論我哋嘅呼吸係長或者短，我哋都跟隨觀察整個過程。
That means that during the 4 or 5 seconds of breathing in, there is no interruption of mindfulness. Your mindfulness continue all the way through.
因此喺4秒鐘或者5秒鐘入面，冇任何嘅中斷，我哋嘅正念能量能夠保持。
Your in-breath or out-breath become the only object of your mind.
呼吸成為你心唯一嘅對象。
And that is why in the second exercise, the quality of mindfulness has increased. The quality of concentration also has increased.
因此喺第2個練習入邊，正念同埋正定嘅能量因而加強。
In the sutra, it is spoken in terms of long in-breath, long out-breath, short in-breath, short out-breath. But in fact, the meaning is that you follow your in-breath and out-breath all the way through.
喺經文入邊係用長呼吸、短呼吸嚟到寫嘅，但係其實佢嘅意思係我哋觀察整個呼吸嘅過程。
But that does not mean that you have to suffer while breathing in or breathing out.
但係咁樣唔代表你喺吸氣或者呼氣嘅時候你要受苦。
You allow yourself to breathe normally. You don't have to make any effort at all.
你讓自己如常咁樣呼吸，你唔需要費任何力量。
You don't try to make your in-breath longer or shorter.
你唔需要令自己嘅呼吸變得更長或者更短。
You must bring your mind into it. Focus your mind on your in-breath and out-breath.
你只需要將你嘅心放喺你嘅呼吸之上。
It's like the sunshine playing with the flower.
就好似太陽同花一樣。
The sunshine shine on the flower and does not interfere with the flower.
太陽照耀喺花上邊，但係唔會去妨礙花或者去阻隔花。
So the art of breathing is you allow yourself to breathe normally. You just pay attention to your in-breath and out-breath.
因此，收集正念呼吸亦都係一樣，我哋將專注放喺我哋嘅吸氣同埋呼氣之上。
And if we just do that for a few minutes, the quality of our breathing will be increased.
只需要收集幾分鐘，我哋呼吸嘅質素就會提升。
Our in-breath will naturally become a little bit deeper, and out-breath a little bit longer.
吸氣嘅時候會自自然然變得更加深，呼氣嘅時候會自自然然變得更加長。
This is what we practice with Sister Jewel this morning. Breathing in, I notice that my in-breath has become deeper. Breathing out, I notice that my out-breath has become slower.
呢個就係我哋今朝早同朱賢法師一齊做嘅修習。吸氣嘅時候，我哋知道我哋嘅呼吸變得更加深；呼氣嘅時候，我哋發覺我哋呼氣變得更加長。
It's not our intention to make it deeper or slower. The fact is that if we pay attention to it, it will naturally become deeper and slower, and the pleasure we feel increase.
我哋冇刻意去令我哋嘅呼吸變得更加深或者長，只係自然地，我哋呼吸會變深同埋長。
Your breathing become more peaceful, more harmonious. It's more pleasant. Become more pleasant.
我哋嘅呼吸變得更加平安同埋和諧，我哋會感到愉悅。
And a good practitioner enjoys her in-breath and her out-breath.
一個好嘅禪修者會非常之享受佢哋嘅呼吸。
Breathing in, I enjoy my in-breath. Breathing out, I enjoy my out-breath.
吸氣，我享受吸氣；呼氣，我享受呼氣。
In fact, to be alive, to be still alive, and to be breathing in and out is already a miracle, the miracle of life. And I celebrate it by breathing in joyfully, breathing out joyfully. I don't have to make any effort. This is a matter of enjoyment, not a matter of hard labor.
其實當我哋活着，真正咁樣活着，能夠吸氣同呼氣呢一個已經係奇蹟。我哋好好咁樣去享受呢一個奇蹟。呼吸係一個奇蹟，而唔係一項苦工。
The same thing is true with walking. Mindful walking is to enjoy every step. Every step is to celebrate the fact that you are alive and you are walking on this planet. You don't have to make any effort. You just enjoy every step, and that is possible with some training.
步行亦都係一樣，每一步都係生命嘅慶祝。我哋就自自然然咁樣去步行，唔需要非常之費力咁樣去做。
And you may like to walk in such a way that make the Pure Land available right in the here and the now.
我哋嘅步行可以令淨土喺當下呢一刻此時此地顯現。
The third exercise, mindful breathing, proposed by the Buddha, is to become aware of your whole body.
佛陀教導嘅正念呼吸第三項係要覺察全身。
The body is a formation.
身行
Formation is a technical term in Buddhism. It means anything that manifests based on many conditions.
行係一個佛教嘅術語，即係話一啲現象嘅生起。
A flower is a formation. It is made with the seed, with the plant, with the sunshine, with the rain. Many things have come together in order to help a flower to manifest. And the flower is a formation.
呼 花係由種子、太陽、雨水等等造成嘅，因此花係一個行。
Your anger is also a formation. It is a mental formation.
憤怒係我哋心嘅現象。
Because your anger is made of many elements.
憤怒又係由好多元素造成嘅。
Including the element wrong view, wrong perception.
包括錯誤嘅見解、錯誤嘅認知。
And your body is a formation. It is a physiological formation.
你嘅身體亦都係一啲身體上嘅現象。
The word body as a formation is seen in the original text of the sutra.
喺經文入面用嘅字係心行。
And the word, the third word represents awareness, mindfulness. Breathing in, I'm aware of the formation called body.
第三個字覺嘅意思係覺察，吸氣我哋覺察全身。
And that is classical Chinese of the 3rd century.
呢一個係第3世紀嘅中文古文。
Now we can say, breathing in, I am aware of my whole body.
我哋用而家嘅語言嚟講，我哋可以話吸氣我覺察全身。
So this exercise is to bring mind home to body, so that mind and body become one, oneness of body and mind.
呢一個練習幫助我哋將心帶回身體，令身心一齊。
And when mind and body are together, you are truly there in order to live deeply the moment.
當身心一語嘅時候，你可以真真正正咁活在當下呢一刻。
You can get in touch with the wonderful, refreshing and healing elements.
你可以接觸到生命之中清新美妙嘅元素。
Because you need nourishment and healing.
因為你需要滋養同埋治療。
And since you are truly there in the here and the now, you have a chance to handle the suffering in you and around you.
當你真真正正咁樣喺當下呢一刻嘅時候，你會有能力可以去處理你心中嘅痛苦同埋周圍嘅痛苦。
As a good practitioner, you always practice bringing your mind back to your body with the 3rd exercise proposed by Lord Buddha.
一個好嘅禪修者常常都會收集佛陀所教導嘅第3項修習，將心帶回身體，覺察全身。
And this is really the basic practice.
呢個係好基本嘅修習。
The 4th exercise is to allow the body to release the tension inside.
第4個修習，我哋用身體釋放身體嘅壓力。
This character in the text, it means to calm, to release the tension, to concentrate, to calm down.
經文入邊用到身行息，息字嘅意思係要平靜、緩和、舒緩身體。
When you go back to your body, you might notice that there is tension and pain in your body.
當我哋返到身體嘅時候，我哋可能覺察到身體有一啲緊張同埋痛楚。
We have allowed tension and pain to be accumulated a little bit too much in our body.
我哋過往讓我哋身體嘅痛楚同埋壓力累積。
And that can be the cause of many troubles we have to encounter now and in the future.
呢個 身體同埋緊張，其實可以為我哋帶嚟好多嘅麻煩。
And that is why we are motivated by the desire to release the tension in our body.
因此，我哋想要釋放身體嘅緊張。
So the fourth exercise is to release the tension, and together with the tension, reduce the pain in our body.
因此，第四個練習係要釋放身體嘅緊張同埋痛楚。
And this can be done in the sitting position, if you know how to sit relaxingly.
如果我哋懂得好舒服咁樣坐低嘅話，我哋可以用坐姿嚟收集呢一個練習。
The Buddha sit upright, but he's not tense at all. He's very relaxed.
佛陀端身正坐，但係佢係非常之放鬆，唔會有任何嘅緊張嘅。
He enjoys sitting very light. That is why we depicted him as sitting on a lotus flower.
佛陀好輕鬆咁樣坐，因此我哋有時會將佛陀畫成坐喺蓮花之上。
Many of us do not sit on a lotus flower. We sit on a heap of burning charcoal.
好多人唔係坐喺蓮花之上，而係坐喺一啲燒緊嘅炭上面。
So it is possible to sit in such a way that can help us release all tension in the body.
我哋坐低嘅時候，其實係可以幫助到我哋釋放身體嘅緊張。
And if you don't know how to do that, ask the Dhamma teachers or co-practitioners who know how to do it.
如果你仲未識得收集嘅話，你可以問我哋嘅佛法老師，或者係你身邊嘅同修。
This afternoon there will be a chance for us to practice total deep relaxation in a lying position with the guidance of Sister True Emptiness.
喺下晝，我哋有機會躺下來收集深度放鬆，會由真空法師帶領大家去收集。
And we hope that you can bring that practice home and do it at home with members of your family.
我希望你哋可以將呢個收集帶返屋企，同你嘅屋企人一齊去練習。
If you are the head of a corporation, you may like to teach your employees the practice of total relaxation once or twice a day.
如果你係啲企業嘅領導人，你可以將呢一個練習帶返去同你嘅員工一齊分享。
If you are a school teacher, you might like to teach your students to do total relaxation. They will study better.
如果你係一位老師，你可以教你嘅學生去做完全放鬆嘅練習，佢哋嘅成績可能因而得到改善。
It is possible to release the tension when we do walking.
喺我哋步行嘅時候，我哋同樣係可以釋放身體嘅壓力。
From the parking lot to your office, you may walk in such a way that each step help release the tension in you.
由停車場行去辦公室嘅時候，每一步我哋都可以幫助身體釋放緊張。
This morning, walking from my cabin to the meditation hall, I invited the Buddha to walk for me.
今朝早由我嘅房間行到嚟禪堂嘅時候，我邀請佛陀幫我行。
I said, "Dear Buddha, my feet are strong enough. Please walk with my feet."
我同佛陀講，我嘅雙腳好攰，請佛陀幫我行。
My lungs are good enough. You can use my lungs to breathe in and out.
我嘅肺部非常之良好，佛陀請你用我嘅肺部呼吸。
So it was not me who walked from the cabin to the meditation hall. It's the Buddha who did that this morning.
因此今朝早由我嘅房間行到嚟禪堂，其實係佛陀幫我行嘅。
And the Buddha generated a lot of peace and joy during the time of walking.
喺步行嘅時間，佛陀培養到非常之多平安同埋喜悅。
And because he was using my feet, using my lungs, that is why I also enjoy the peace and the joy generated by his walking.
因為佛陀用我嘅雙腳同埋肺部去行，因此喺步行嘅時間，我亦都享受到佛陀所培養嘅平安同埋喜悅。
So dear friends, if sometimes you are lazy, you don't want to practice sitting meditation, walking meditation, ask the Buddha to do it for you.
因此，我嘅朋友，有時你比較懶惰，你唔想修習坐禪或者行禪，你可以請佛陀幫你做。
He is always ready to do it for you.
佢隨時無時無刻都準備好為你而做。
I remember one day when I was in Seoul, South Korea, about to start walking meditation.
我記得有一次，當喺韓國嘅首爾準備開始行禪嘅時候，
The time has come to do walking meditation, but it was impossible to walk.
修習嘅時間已經到咗，但係我冇可能無法去行。
Many hundreds of people with a video camera come and take picture. There's no way that you can do walking meditation.
有幾百人揸住相機喺我面前影相，根本完全冇路可以俾我行。
So I told the Buddha, "Dear Buddha, I give up. Please walk for me."
因此我同佛陀講：佛陀，我放棄啦，請你幫我行啦。
And the Buddha accepted right away, and he began to make the first step and the second step, and then people make the room for him to walk. It's wonderful.
佛陀接受，因此佛陀開始行第一步、第二步，因面前嘅人全部散開，而佛陀有一條路可以繼續向前行。
Let me tell you, my friends, there is a Buddha in you. Profit from her presence.
各位朋友，我可以話俾你聽，喺你哋每一個人心中都有一位佛陀，你可以從佢度得益。
The fifth exercise on mindful breathing has the aim of bringing in a feeling of joy.
第五個正念呼吸嘅練習，幫助我哋升起喜悅嘅感覺。
And the sixth is to bring in a feeling of happiness.
第六個練習帶嚟樂嘅感覺。
The seventh is to recognize a painful feeling.
第七個練習係要覺察痛苦嘅感覺。
And the eighth is to release the tension, the suffering in the painful feeling.
第八個練習係要釋放痛苦嘅感覺。
This means mental formation, and mental formation here it means a feeling.
第七個練習心行，心行嘅意思係痛苦嘅感覺。
Because the first four exercise aim at taking care of the body, and the next four exercise aim at take care of the feelings.
頭 頭4個練習係關於身體嘅練習，而跟住嗰4個練習係關於感受嘅練習。
The seventh is to recognize a feeling of pain, a painful feeling, to recognize the existence of a painful emotion.
第7個練習係要覺察痛苦嘅感覺、痛苦嘅情緒。
And the eighth is to embrace, to hold that painful feeling and release the tension and get some relief.
第8個練習係覺察同埋擁抱痛苦嘅感受，令呢一個感受得以釋放。
If you are a true Buddhist practitioner, you should learn how to recognize a painful feeling in you, a painful emotion in you.
如果你真正係一個修習佛法嘅人，你會懂得覺察你心入邊嘅痛苦嘅感覺同埋情緒。
Doing mindful walking, you generate the energy of mindfulness and you say, hello, dear painful feeling, dear anger, dear fear, I know you are there. I am here to help you, to take care of you.
當你修習正念呼吸、正念步行嘅時間，你可以覺察到痛苦感受嘅升起，你會同佢講：我嘅痛苦感受，我會好好咁樣照顧你。
The energy of mindfulness is first of all to recognize the pain, and secondly to hold the pain tenderly, like a mother would hold her baby.
正念嘅能量首先幫助我哋覺察到痛苦嘅感受，然後輕輕咁樣擁抱呢個感受，就好似一位媽媽抱住佢嘅 BB 一樣。
So when there is a strong emotion like anger, fear, jealousy, despair, you don't say anything, you don't do anything. You have to go home to take care of that pain and hold it dearly with the energy of mindfulness. That is what recommended by the Buddha.
因此，當痛苦嘅情緒或者感受升起，好似憤怒、妒忌或者絕望等等，我哋唔需要做啲乜嘢，我哋只需要用正念嘅能向去覺察同埋輕輕擁抱呢一啲感覺。
Those who are not practitioners, they don't have enough mindfulness. They don't have enough of that energy that can help them to recognize and embrace their pain.
冇修習禪修嘅人，佢哋並冇足夠嘅正念能量去覺察同埋擁抱佢哋嘅痛苦。
But if they come with a practicing Sangha and learn to breathe, to walk, to do everything mindfully, and then a few weeks later, they will have enough energy of mindfulness in order to handle the pain, the suffering inside.
但係如果我哋嚟到一個共修團，我哋一齊修習正念呼吸、正念步行，過咗一段時間之後，我哋會有足夠嘅正念能量去覺察同埋擁抱痛苦。
The Sangha, the Sanskrit word Sangha means community.
生涯呢個字嘅意思係一個團體。
And in the Buddhist tradition, we speak of the fourfold Sangha.
喺佛教入邊，我哋話4眾僧團。
Monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen.
出家嘅男女眾同埋在家嘅男女眾。
Even if you are only a group of lay people practicing, you are also Sangha, part of the Sangha.
因此，即使你嘅共修團只係有在家嘅朋友，亦已經係一個僧團。
On the last day of our retreats, organized in Europe and America, we always urge people to go home and set up a Sangha.
喺歐洲或者美國等等地方舉辦嘅禪修營嘅最後一日，我哋總會鼓勵大家去建立僧團。
They do together what we do in the retreat, sitting, walking, eating mindfully, listen to a Dhamma talk.
共修團嘅修習同我哋喺呢個禪營嘅修習一樣，坐禪、坐禪、正念咁樣進食，同埋聽佛法講座。
And together they can generate a more powerful energy of mindfulness than each person can generate.
大家一齊修習嘅話，可以培養到集體嘅正面能量，係比個人修習嘅能量更加強嘅。
When your mindfulness is not strong enough, you are afraid of going home to yourself because you believe that if you go home to yourself, you'll be overwhelmed by the suffering inside.
如果你嘅正念唔夠強嘅話，可能你會好害怕返到自身嘅家園，因為如果你返自己嘅時候，你會接觸到你嘅痛楚，你可能會覺得受不了。
And many people in our society do not want to go home to themselves and take care of themselves. They tend to run away from themselves.
我哋嘅社會入邊有好多人，佢哋唔敢去返自己，佢哋想要逃避自己心入邊嘅痛苦。
They practice consuming in order to forget the suffering inside.
佢哋通過消費，企圖去忘記心入邊嘅痛苦。
They watch television, they read novels, magazines, they listen to music, they do everything in order not to think of the suffering inside. They want to cover up the suffering by the way of consumption.
佢哋睇電視、睇雜誌、小説等等，企圖去逃避心中嘅痛苦，掩蓋佢哋嘅痛苦。
And by doing so, they allow the suffering to grow, and they suffer more, and they make the people around them suffer more, even the people they want to love.
當佢哋咁樣做嘅話，佢哋嘅痛苦因而加強，因為佢哋感到痛苦，亦都令佢哋身邊嘅人感到痛苦，即使嗰啲人係佢哋愛嘅人。
The Buddha encouraged us to go home to ourselves and take care of the suffering inside.
佛陀建議我哋返自身嘅家園，照顧我哋心入邊嘅痛苦。
He said that if you have a certain amount of mindfulness and concentration, there is no reason why you have to be afraid of the suffering inside. You can go home to yourself and take care of the suffering inside and transform it.
如果佛陀話，如果我哋有正念同埋正定嘅能量，我哋唔需要害怕返到自身嘅家園，我哋可以返自己，我哋有能力去照顧我哋心入邊嘅痛苦，轉化痛苦。
When we get in touch with our suffering, when we know how to hold our suffering tenderly, we have a chance to understand the nature and the roots of our own suffering.
當我哋返自己嘅家園，我哋可以去處理同埋覺察我哋嘅痛苦嘅時候，我哋可以了解到痛苦嘅根源。
And that is the meaning of the first two noble truths.
呢個就係聖諦入邊第一二項嘅意思。
The first truth is to recognize the presence of suffering.
第一聖諦係要覺察苦嘅存在。
And the second truth is to look deeply, to listen to your own suffering in order to find out that true nature, that the roots of the suffering.
第二項係要去了解我哋嘅痛苦，深入咁樣去觀察，以能夠明白睇到我哋苦嘅根源同埋本性。
And if you understand the nature of your own suffering, suddenly the Fourth Noble Truth appear very clearly, the path leading to the transformation of suffering.
如果我哋能夠了解我哋嘅痛苦，見到痛苦嘅根源嘅時候，第四聖諦離苦之道會非常之清楚咁樣顯現。
When you see the path, you suffer much less.
當你睇到呢條路嘅時候，你嘅痛苦已經大大減少。
You know how to handle your suffering. You know how to transform your suffering.
你知道點樣去處理你嘅痛苦，轉化痛苦。
So it is the understanding of the second noble truth, the nature of suffering, that lead to your understanding of the path.
因此，第二聖諦了解你痛苦嘅根源，能夠帶來第四聖諦，令你可以睇到離苦之道。
And this is the path that leads to the cessation of suffering.
離苦之道能夠帶來痛苦嘅止息。
Many people do not see that the cessation of suffering means the presence of happiness.
有好多人唔知道痛苦嘅止息嘅意思，其實就係幸福喜樂嘅生起。
Teaching Buddhism for young people, instead of using the truth of cessation, we can name it. The third truth is the truth of happiness.
如果我哋教導年青人佛學嘅話，我哋可以唔用滅苦，我哋可以話第三聖諦就係幸福。
Because the cessation, the absence of suffering, means the presence of happiness.
因為痛苦嘅止息、滅苦，其實意思即係話幸福嘅生起。
It is like saying when darkness is no longer there, something must be there. That is the light.
正如當沒有黑暗，再冇黑暗嘅時候，即係話某一啲東西存在，呢、個就係光。
So it is not correct to say that the Four Noble Truths is only about suffering.
因此，如果我哋話四聖諦全部都係關於苦嘅，呢一個講法並唔正確。
The Four Noble Truths are about suffering and happiness.
四聖諦係關於苦同埋樂嘅。
Only there is a very strong connection between suffering and happiness.
苦同埋樂有非常之強嘅聯繫。
We obtain happiness not by running away from suffering, but by learning how to handle our suffering.
我哋去得到幸福快樂嘅方法，並唔係要逃避痛苦，而係去處理痛苦。
We can remember the mud and the lotus. There is no lotus possible without mud.
我哋可以諗一諗泥同蓮花，如果冇污泥，係唔可能會有蓮花嘅。
There is no nirvana without samsara.
如果冇娑婆，係唔會有涅槃嘅。
So the insight of interbeing, the insight of non-duality is very clear.
所 相積同埋非二元嘅智慧係非常之清楚嘅。
If you do not recognize suffering, if you do not look deeply into the nature of suffering, there is no way that you can see the path that lead to the cessation of suffering.
如果你唔去覺察痛苦，唔去了解痛苦嘅根源，你係唔會有可能睇到離苦嘅道路嘅。
So the 7th and the 8th exercises presented by the Buddha are to help us to handle suffering.
因此，佛陀所教導嘅第7同埋第8個練習係幫助我哋處理痛苦。
And the 5th and the 6th are to help us create happiness and joy.
第5同第6個練習係幫助我哋培養喜樂。
According to this teaching and its practice, a true practitioner should be able to create, to bring in a moment of joy, a moment of happiness, whenever she wants to.
根據佛陀嘅教導同埋我哋嘅修習，一個禪修者只要佢想嘅時候，喺每一刻都可以培養到喜同埋樂。
A true practitioner should be a creator of happiness.
一個好嘅禪修者能夠製造到幸福同埋快樂。
The question is how to generate a feeling of joy, how to generate a feeling of happiness.
問題係點樣可以培養幸福，點樣可以培養喜悅。
And with this, the teaching of the Buddha is very clear.
關於呢一方面，佛陀嘅教導非常之清楚。
The first method to create joy and happiness is the method of letting go.
第一個培養喜悅幸福嘅方法係放下離。
The Buddha speaks of joy and happiness that are born from the practice of leaving behind, letting go.
離生喜樂，喜樂係由我哋放下而生起嘅。
If you continue to suffer because you are not able to leave behind which that should be left behind,
如果你仍然感到痛苦，係因為你放唔低你需要放低嘅嘢。
you may believe that you cannot let it go because it's essential to your well-being, to your happiness.
可能有啲嘢你唔想放低，係因為你以為嗰啲嘢係可以為你帶來幸福。
But looking deeply, you might realize that it is these things that prevent you from being happy.
但係如果深入咁樣觀察，可能你會發覺正正係呢一啲嘢令你唔能夠快樂。
There are many things we can let go if we have enough courage.
如果我哋有足夠嘅勇氣嘅話，其實有好多嘢我哋係可以放下嘅。
Because they have been obstacle for your being happy.
因為呢啲嘢正正係阻礙咗你去得到幸福。
Suppose you have an idea about happiness.
假設你對幸福有一啲意念。
Every one of us seems to have an idea about happiness.
我哋每一個人對幸福都有一啲睇法同埋意念。
We believe that happiness is only possible if I get this or if I can get rid of that.
我哋以為我哋一定要得到某啲東西，或者離開某啲東西先至可以得到幸福。
And because of that, we are not happy because we have not been able to get it or to get rid of it.
因此你唔會感到幸福快樂，因為你仲未得到或者仲未可以離開某啲嘢。
Looking around, we see people, many people who do not have it, and yet they are happy.
但係當我哋望周圍嘅時候，我哋見到有好多人並冇擁有嗰啲東西，但係佢哋覺得非常之快樂。
And there are those who are exactly in the same environment. They have not get rid of it, but they are still happy.
亦都有好多人，佢哋係處於同樣嘅環境，佢哋仲未能夠離開嗰個環境，但係佢哋仍然係感到幸福快樂。
So the first thing you have to let go, maybe your idea of happiness.
因此你要放下嘅第一樣嘢，可能就係你對幸福嘅意念。
You may think that that diploma is crucial for your happiness, or that position in society is crucial for your happiness, but it might not be so.
可能你以為一張文憑或者一啲社會嘅地位係對於你嘅幸福嚟講係必然嘅條件，但係事實上可能並唔係嘅。
According to this practice, the more you let go, the happier you become.
根據你呢個修習，你越能夠放下，你越能夠幸福。
One day the Buddha was sitting with his monks in the wood. They were about to have lunch together.
有一日，佛陀同佢嘅弟子一齊喺個森林入邊坐低，準備用午膳。
And suddenly a farmer went by. He looked as if he is the person who suffered the most in the world.
突然間有一位農夫走過，呢一位農夫睇上嚟好似係世界上最痛苦嘅人。
And he asked the Buddha, "Venerables, monks, have you seen my cows passing by this way?"
佢問佛陀：親愛嘅僧人，你有冇見過我嘅牛喺呢度走過？
The Buddha said, "What cows? We have not seen any."
佛陀問：乜嘢牛啊？我哋冇見過牛喺呢度走過喎。
The farmer said that I have 5 cows, and I don't know why this morning they have run away, all of them.
呢位農夫答：我有5隻牛，但係今日朝頭早唔知點解佢哋所有都走失咗。
And this year, the insect have eaten up all my sesame plantation.
而且今年有一啲昆蟲，佢將我整個芝麻田都食咗。
How can I survive without my cows and my sesame plantation?
如果我冇咗呢啲牛，又冇咗我嘅芝麻嘅生成，我點可以存活呢？
Out of compassion, the Buddha looked at him and said, "Dear friend, we have not seen your cows passing by here. You might like to look for them on the other direction."
佛陀好慈悲咁同呢位農夫講：我哋冇見到牛喺呢邊走過，你可以去另外嘅一邊揾一揾。
And when the farmer is gone, the Buddha turned and looked at his monks, and he said, "My dear friends, you are very lucky. You don't have any cows to lose."
喺呢位農夫離開之後，佛陀望住佢嘅比丘弟子話：親愛嘅朋友，你哋非常之幸福，因為你冇任何牛可以走失。
If the monks are happy not because they have a lot of cows, but because they do not have any cow.
因此呢啲比丘感到幸福，並唔係因為佢哋有好多牛，而正係因為佢哋冇任何牛。
Each of us has a number of cows,
我哋每一個人都有一啲牛。
And we should get a piece of paper and write down the name of our cows on that sheet of paper.
我哋可以攞張紙寫低我哋擁有嘅牛。
That may be a house, that may be a person, that may be a piece of land, that may be a position.
可能係一間屋、一個人，或者一個地位，或者一片土地。
Look deeply to see what cow you can let go now.
深入去觀察，喺當下呢一刻，你可以放低嘅係乜嘢牛呢？
According to the Buddha, the more cow you let go, the happier you become.
根據佛陀嘅教導，你能夠放下越多嘅牛，你越能夠感到幸福快樂。
There's a lady living in Manhattan, New York. She acquired a piece of land. She wanted to build a high building for renting.
喺美國曼克頓有一位女士，佢買咗一塊地，佢希望喺呢一塊地上邊起一層高樓租出去。
And she did not feel happy as far as the building has not been realized.
當呢一棟樓仲未起好嘅時候，佢一直都唔感到快樂。
That day she received a visit of a friend.
有一次佢嘅朋友嚟探佢。
Her friend brought her to the window, looking in the direction of the future building.
佢嘅朋友將佢帶嚟窗前，向窗外望出去呢，就係佢準備起樓嘅地方。
And she said, "Dear friend, don't you see that this view is beautiful? You can see the moon, you can see the bridge."
佢嘅朋友對佢講：我嘅朋友啊，你覺唔覺得呢一個窗外嘅景象係非常之美麗？你可以睇到月光，睇到好靚嘅景色。
If you allow the building to rise, then you lose this beautiful view.
如果你喺呢一度起一層高樓嘅話，你將唔會再有呢一個好美麗嘅窗景。
We need some space in order to be happy, and you have a beautiful space outside. You need a little bit of space inside of you also.
我哋需要一啲空間，而喺窗外嘅空間係非常之遼闊，而我哋亦都係需要喺我哋心入邊有一啲空間嘅。
So if you give up the idea of building that, not only you have space before your window, but you also have space into your heart, and you have more happiness.
因此，如果你能夠放下起呢等高樓嘅諗法嘅話，你會喺你嘅窗前有更保持到呢一片空間，而喺你嘅心亦都有更多嘅空間，讓你可以感到幸福快樂。
And that evening, the wealthy lady in Manhattan, she was able to release her cow, the intention to build a big building and to get more profit.
喺曼克頓呢位好富有嘅女士，佢能夠放下呢隻牛，佢放下咗想要起一頂高樓嘅想法。
According to this teaching and practice, a lot of joy and happiness may be obtained when you are able to leave behind your cows, to let go of your cows.
根據呢一個教導同埋修習，我哋如果能夠放下我哋嘅牛嘅話，我哋係可以得到好大嘅幸福同埋喜悅嘅。
Suppose you live in a big city like Los Angeles, and you suffer because of the noise, of the dust, the odor, and you would like to go to the countryside at the weekend.
假如你係住喺好似洛杉磯咁樣非常之繁忙嘅城市，有好多噪音，空氣亦都唔太好。喺 喺週末嘅時候，你會想離開呢個城市去到郊外。
It takes you at least 1 hour to get out of Los Angeles, and when you come in touch with the hills, the ocean, the trees, the countryside, you feel so happy. Your happiness is born from the fact that you have been able to leave Los Angeles behind.
因此，當你揸車最少1個鐘頭離開咗洛杉磯去到郊外嘅時候，你見到山，見到水，你感到非常之幸福同埋快樂。呢一份幸福快樂係來自於你能夠放下洛杉磯。
But you are a lucky ones because many people in Los Angeles, they also want to get out of the city, but they cannot. They are caught. They cannot release their cows.
其實你係非常之幸運嘅，因為你能夠放得低呢個繁忙嘅城市，而住喺呢個繁忙城市入邊嘅其他有好多人，佢哋被呢個城市所困，佢哋並未能夠放得下。
Dear friends, if you have been able to come to this retreat because you were able to release some cows. There are other people who want to come to the retreat, but because they cannot release their cows, they are not here today with us.
因此，你哋嚟到呢一個禪修營，係因為你哋可以放下某啲牛。有好多其他人，佢哋想嚟呢個禪修營，但係佢哋唔能夠放下佢哋嘅牛，因此佢哋今日唔係坐喺呢一度。
The second method of bringing joy and happiness is mindfulness.
第二個培養喜樂嘅方法係正念。
When you bring your mind home to your body, you recognize that there are so many conditions of happiness that are already available.
當你將心帶返身體嘅時候，你發覺到其實你已經擁有好多幸福快樂嘅條件。
And sitting, you are happy. Walking, you are happy. Drinking tea, you are happy. You can be happy at any moment.
無論你係坐喺度或者喺度步行飲茶嘅時間，你都覺得幸福快樂。喺生命中嘅每一刻，你都感到喜樂。
Because mindfulness helps you to be truly in the here and the now. Mindfulness sets you free so that you can enjoy the present moment with all the wonders.
因為正念幫助你能夠活在呢一刻，全然活在當下，令你能夠感到自在，好好去享受呢一刻嘅生命。
Mindfulness allowed us to recognize so many conditions of happiness that are already available, more than enough to make us happy.
正念幫助我哋覺察到，我哋已經擁有好多多於足夠嘅條件去感到幸福快樂。
So those of us who practice mindfulness, we know that mindfulness is a source of happiness.
因此，我哋修習正念嘅人，我哋會知道正念其實係喜樂嘅來源。
And concentration is also a source of happiness.
定亦都係喜樂嘅來源。
Concentration not only can put you in touch deeply with the wonders of life, including Buddha nature in you, the Pure Land manifesting in the here and the now, but it can also help you to be liberated from your afflictions like anger and fear.
正念唔單止能夠讓你深深地接觸到當下美好嘅事物、幸福嘅條件，正定亦都係可以幫助到你處理呢啲痛苦同埋煩惱。
Understanding, wisdom is another source of happiness.
智慧亦都即係了解，係另一個喜樂嘅來源。
When you understand your suffering, you are free from your suffering.
當你能夠了解你嘅痛苦，你就會能夠從痛苦之中釋放。
When you understand reality, you understand phenomena, that brings us a lot of happiness also.
當我哋能夠了解實相、了解現象，呢一個亦都可以係為我哋帶嚟好大嘅喜樂。
The scientists who are trying to understand the nature of what is there, every time they find out something, they are highly rewarded, and their happiness is born also from understanding.
科學家想要去了解事物，想要去了解現象，當佢哋有新發現嘅時候，佢哋有好大嘅喜樂。
Understanding is a source of liberation.
智慧了解係解脫嘅一個來源。
In Buddhism, we speak of salvation in terms of understanding. We do not speak of salvation in terms of grace.
喺佛教入邊，我哋話了解同埋智慧可以為我哋帶嚟救贖，而我哋唔係去講救贖係來自悲憫。
But if you are from a Christian background, you can understand grace as a kind of understanding. The best kind of grace is understanding.
如果你係一個基督教嘅，如果你有基督信仰，你可以話悲憫慈憫其實亦都係為你了解同埋智慧。
You in Christianity, you are urged to be still, to be concentrated.
喺基督教入邊，你係基督教係會鼓勵我哋停低落嚟。
And since you have concentration, stillness, you come to understand, to know.
當我哋停低落嚟嘅時候，我哋會能夠明白。
And the deepest understanding is to touch the nature of no birth and no death, nirvana.
最深入嘅了解係要接觸到無生無滅，接觸到涅槃。
Nirvana, the true nature of our true nature of no birth and no death, is the equal to God.
涅槃同埋無生無滅，亦都係相等於基督教所講神嘅意旨。
In fact, in the Psalms, it is said that be still and know I am your God.
喺聖經入邊有提到止，喺當我哋停止嘅時候，我哋就能夠明白。
The wording in Buddhism is a little bit different, but it means the same thing.
佛教所用嘅詞句有一啲唔同，但係所指嘅都係同一樣嘢。
Be still, be concentrated, and touch the nature of no birth and no death, nirvana.
靜止專注，我哋能夠接觸到涅槃。
So there are many sources of joy and happiness, and we just mentioned 4 of them: letting go, mindfulness, concentration, and insight.
喜樂嘅來源有好多個，但係我哋今日提到4個：離、念、定同埋慧。
So the practitioner is a true artist. She knows how to handle a feeling of pain, a feeling of suffering, and she also now knows how to bring about a feeling of joy, a feeling of happiness.
一個禪修者，佢懂得點樣去處理佢嘅痛苦，同埋培養喜樂。
We shall continue tomorrow.
我哋明日